Hey everybody, ronarray here, and I've been testing a lot of different farm strategies in 0.5. Based on that, I did a pretty nice tier list on one of the streams, showcasing best farms based on my own and my chat experience. But in 0.5.3 and later in 0.5.4, GG changed a lot of aspects for particular farms, buffing expedition for example, and economy changed as well. So in this video, I think it's a perfect timing to share an updated farming tier list that we created on the stream again, ranking almost all farming strategies plus sharing more information about placements. Hope that video will help you out to pick the best farm for you. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you appreciate farm related content too, and let's go. So let's start with the list, and at the moment I believe that I'm going to set everything up like the strategies that are going to be closer to the left are going to be better than the ones coming to the right. And first one is Abyss chests. I believe that Abyss chests has been significantly better before. At the moment, Jewel costs practically nothing and Abyss chests by themselves not dropping enough omens. I believe that strategy is still a possibility to farm, but it fell off significantly. And right now it belongs to the C tier at top, maybe higher C tier like lower B tier, mostly because of the very bad prices for both jewels and the loot from the chest as well. Next thing is essences, and at the moment I don't really believe essences by themselves could be a dedicated farm. Essences look pretty bad and unfortunately most of them are pretty cheap, so that's a pretty solid D tier by itself. I don't really think it could be redeemed, and you can only farm it maybe occasionally if you already spawned a few in your map. Next one is tablet farming, and tablet farming in my opinion is rising up significantly, mostly because some particular tablets cost a lot of currency. It's also pretty good to combine with other strategies such as boss rush or logbooks farm, so at the moment I would say the tablets is lower S tier or higher A tier, so somewhere in between those two. Mostly because you still need to craft tablets and there's some RNG involved, so amount of profit you're making could jump. But if the prices for tablets keep climbing, I believe it will be S tier soon. And the next one is the boss farm, which is Divine Arbiter, so the new type of Arbiter. At the moment it's not looking good enough. Unfortunately, out of the bosses, Divine Arbiter is probably belongs to the C tier, and even if prices will jump a little, especially entry price will just go down, I believe the best it could do is probably B tier, just because it's not dropping anything too expensive compared to other boss farms, which can at least provide pretty big loots up to 100 divines. So the next strategy is a boss rush, and boss rush right now could be done in a lot of different ways. It's been solid S tier across the whole league because of the various reasons. First off, you can combine it with such things as like tablets farm or logbook farm, or practically anything else. You can also aim to farm such things as like Rakiatas or Garokhans. And even if the chances for things like Garokhan is not too high, at the moment it go for about 559 divines, which is absolutely crazy. But even talking about stable profit, things like Breach Lord Sack is about 8 divines, and Boss Rush is going to provide a constant way to generate those. So I believe the boss rush is a very solid S tier just because of that, and especially with combination with other farming strategies too. And the next thing we have right here is Ash Arbiter. I believe that Ash Arbiter is probably one of the best boss farms that we currently have. But one of the best is not really making the best, mostly because entrances for Ash Arbiter are pretty expensive. So I'm placing it to the B tier with some potential to jump to A if you're lucky, mostly because unidentified jewels still cost a lot. But to make sure that you're making any profit out of Ash Arbiter, you will need at least 1 or 200 runs, which could be too expensive to invest. So that's like the main reason why it's staying in the B tier itself. And the next farm we have, it's like Atziri Rush. I believe that Atziri Rush is probably one of the best things to farm in the temple. because of the variety of reasons. First off, the Atziri Communion Gem has tremendous price. So if you will just look at the number, it currently goes for 523 divines, which is absolutely huge. But even outside of that, Atziri is still dropping pretty consistent temple currency, which you can still sell. So even if you're not hitting big, you're not losing much too. That's why Atziri stays at the A tier, even if that's a pretty big gamba for the jewel itself. But compared to other gamba strategy, you're not receiving nothing if you're not hitting your big loot. So the next thing is a Bodach boss, and I believe that Bodach boss at the moment is probably one of the worst possible strategies and like general bosses to farm. The fight itself is long, Bodach himself is dropping nothing, and I don't really believe there's a big point to farm him overall. Maybe it will change, but at the moment I definitely don't recommend to even think about touching it. And the next strategy is like logbook farming. I believe that at the moment you can guarantee logbooks by just picking poles in your maps, and it's working pretty stable. I think the strategy would be like a pretty solid A tier at the moment, especially when we had logbook prices around 2 divines per each. But since the price been kinda falling in the last few days, I believe right now logbooks belong to the B tier. You can still combine it with things like Atziri Rush or Boss Rush or even Tablet Farm, so it's not completely horrible, but it's not amazing as well, especially since logbook prices will keep going down. So the next strategy we have right here is just Kulemak boss. I believe that Kulemak is approximately around Arbiter, so you can make about 15 divines per hour just running Kulemak, but there's not a lot of chances for big loot and you can't get any big profit out of it. It's just a stable run in case if you just want to do some bosses but don't want to invest a lot. Since it's cheaper than Divine Arbiter, I believe the Kulemak should be higher in the C tier. So the next thing we have right here is Expedition Max mods. And Expedition Max mods been probably one of the main things that got buffed tremendously that patch. They've been buffing Expedition the last few patches, and I believe right now any variation of Expedition Max mods with like Aldur sagas or without it is still very solid as a farm, because you're going to drop tremendous amount of raw divines. I think it belongs to an S tier right now, together with other raw currency farming strategies. Following that, we have a basic Alch and Go. It's funny, but I think Alch and Go is not too horrible as a strategy if you can complete your maps fast. So at least it's better than the essences, just because you're doing map fasters in general, and you're not going to make much profit out of essences too. I believe that fast enough, Alch and Go still could be about like in the middle of C tier, probably beating a few other options which require some setup, but not going to provide huge currency anyway. And another thing, which is a pretty big gamba, is a Raven boss. So Raven boss reminds me of Arbiter of Ash. However, I believe it's much better than that, and it probably belongs at the top of the B tier or end of the A tier. Mostly because just the Raven shard itself costs a lot, and entrances for Raven are pretty cheap. And right here we also have Chaos Trial, and I believe the Trial of Chaos right now is a very solid option just because it's very easy to do, and even if it's boring, it's still providing a very decent profit. I think it belongs somewhere at the end of A tier or like start of B tier. Approximately around Raven, just because it's providing a pretty solid like 20 to 25 divines per hour. And the biggest downside right here that you can't hit anything higher, but you can do it on almost any build and it's very easy to do. That's why I think it belongs to A tier. So for the next thing, we're picking the Ritual City, and I think Ritual been in the S tier for a very long time, and I still think it stays as an S tier strategy for various reasons. First, it's given a pretty decent amount of omens, and omens are very expensive at the moment, so if you will just look at something very basic such as Omen or Whitling, it currently goes for 7 divine each, which is tremendous amount of currency for things that you can get like multiple of them in one single ritual. The biggest downside for Ritual City is that like tablets cost a lot, but you can play a ritual even without the reroll tablet. You're still going to make a decent profit, so I believe it belongs to S tier for sure. Next thing is just Simulacrum spam, and Simulacrum spam being a very big gamba. Without hitting voices, I think it's somewhere between 15 to 20 divines per hour, and you're mostly just baiting on your gamba with voices. If you're hitting voices, it's great. If no, well, I mean, it's going to be pretty bad. So I think that's why we're placing it to the B tier, approximately around Arbiter of Ash, because they're very similar in that case, and I believe that Simulacrum might go higher if the prices for voices will improve in the future. Kind of very similar situation we have with Adorned farming. At the moment, Adorned costs a lot, and you can get one for 1400 divines. However, you can just get a pretty low chances for that, and every entrance costs 14 divines. So I think it's approximately around Ash Arbiter and Simulacrum farming. Most of the gamba farming, as you can see, I'm adding to the B tier, mostly because it can be that good to be higher, but it's still good enough, especially if you're hitting your big loot. And the next thing is Sekhema's. Sekhema's always been very close to S tier as a farm, and right now I think it's probably middle of S tier too. But there's a pretty big downside for Sekhema's, since it requires a dedicated build to maximize the profit. You also need to be very fast. I think it would be smarter to put it in the A tier, mostly because without that build, it's not going to be that amazing compared to other farming strategies. However, if you have that build and run Sekhema's very fast, I think it should be somewhere in S tier instead, but too much setup is making it a little more complicated. And a similar situation we have with Temple Snake. In terms of raw currency, Temple Snake is absolutely amazing and would be around S tier. However, in the current situation, since it's very time consuming to build the correct temple, it should be approximately around Sekhema's in the S tier, so another strategy that could be higher if not for the setup itself. I don't really believe that Catalyzing Breach at the moment is too amazing. It's probably somewhere in the B tier, mostly because it's getting outshined by other farming strategies with Breach, which is 200% Daily Breach. 200% Daily Breach is probably the end of S tier. It's still providing huge currency, you can also get a lot of warm gifts and just get a lot of additional loot from the tree, but just farming Cataysts instead of doing 200% Daily Breach is not making much sense. Same situation with the Rings Breach. So since 200% Daily Breach just outshines both of those farms, I think both of them belong to the B tier and might be done only if your build is not too strong and you can't farm dedicated 200% Daily Breach instead. I think these boxes belongs to the D tier. I don't really believe it's providing enough of loot to be considerably good. Expeditions Aldur in a pretty interesting position. I believe that if you're running the Aldur, there's a big point to run Expedition Max mods. However, if you're not running Max mods, just running Aldurs without them is not going to be profitable enough. So it's somewhere in between, and I'm probably going to put it in the A tier without the Max mods, and if you have the Max mods, it's going to be S tier without a single issue. And the last strategy we have is Daily Abyss. Daily Abyss is still providing pretty good amount of Omens of Light, but there is a pretty big downside. The biggest downside for Daily Abyss right now that you just need to pull anonymous monsters outside of the smoke. It's pretty annoying, and I think that's the reason why I'm placing it a little lower than other strategies in S. But it is still a very solid S tier because you can make more than like 40 divines per hour if your build is strong enough and you can run it fast enough as well. So that's how the list looks at the end. I think in the future there might be some swaps, especially from A tier farms going up to S tier, and maybe some of the S options such as Ritual probably falling off if the prices will change, but at the moment I believe it's a pretty solid way to showcase how economy currently feels. Let me know in the comments what are you farming and what do you think about the positions itself, so maybe you got some good loot or good results based on some of those strategies. And thank you very much for watching. See you next time, and ronarray out.